So we've got a loaded Cowboys report this afternoon, and I've got to tell you, there's a lot to unpack here. We're talking ESPN tidbits on the future of George Pickens, some weird stuff I've been seeing on social media about Pickens versus Lamb, whether Jaydon Blue is going to play this week, Mike McCarthy potentially heading to the New York Football Giants, and Malik Hooker set to return potentially as soon as this week. I'm going to begin with Hooker, but first, what's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Cowboys. Okay, so Malik Hooker is set to make his return, and honestly, I'm excited about this. The Cowboys are opening up his 21-day practice window. As a reminder, that means we get 21 days for him to practice before he has to be activated. It's a maximum, not a minimum window, as he returns from that toe injury he suffered back in Week 4. I've heard hints that he might be able to play on Monday Night Football. We'll see if that happens or not. One thing that I'm going to monitor with some of the linebacker shuffling that's going on, you're going to have DeMarvion Overshown back, Logan Wilson back. If they do sit Kenneth Murray, who's the green dot play caller? What ends up happening if it's not Kenneth Murray out there? Could Malik Hooker potentially be our green dot play caller, given Stephen Jones's comments about the communication and stuff there? That's kind of all speculation on my part, but something that I did want to make note of and mention. We need to get our safeties healthy. Hooker and Wilson were back at practice on Thursday. Elijah Clark is out, though. We'll see if he can even go. Marquise Bell has not been someone this coaching staff trusts, so the safety play has been bad. We have to get healthy. Now let's go to George Pickens. ESPN dropping some insight into what they think will happen with George Pickens this offseason. Pickens was number 4 on ESPN's way too early 2026 free agent rankings, behind guys like, weirdly enough, Daniel Jones. But the general expectation, as I've discussed, and something the Cowboys can't afford to do, has been that they will at least tag Pickens. Here's what Jeremy Fowler of ESPN wrote. The Pickens experiment in Dallas has gone swimmingly. He's pacing for 1,400 plus yards, 10 to 11 touchdowns as the ideal counterpart to CeeDee Lamb. His immense talent and the number of teams starved for receiver help will drive his value. Multiple league execs believe the inconsistency will be a factor to consider in free agency, but Pickens' results with capable quarterback play are undeniable. He's already on the verge of surpassing his catches and yards totals from last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's already passed his touchdown numbers. Barring injury, knock on wood, there's no reason to think it won't be the greatest year of George Pickens' career by a pretty significant margin. You don't let those guys hit free agency, in my opinion. Dan Graziano of ESPN says, I believe there's a strong likelihood that the Cowboys franchise Pickens, assuming they're as happy with him by the end of the year as they've been so far. That's why it's tough to answer a question like this at this point of the season. Like, who's the top free agent? Many of the top potential free agents end up not being free agents because of extensions or because of franchise tags. So, do you think the Cowboys will end up using the franchise tag on George Pickens? Why for yes and for no? Go ahead and let me know in the comments section of today's show. I think the minimum, worst case outcome is that the Cowboys franchise George Pickens. It's going to be roughly 28 and change, maybe 29, what the exact number comes in at in terms of our cap hit in 2026. But at minimum, the Cowboys are going to use the franchise tag on George Pickens. They are very happy on the field, off the field with how George Pickens has played. We're not just going to let him leave because it's a champagne problem when, as I've discussed, we actually have plenty of money available to pay Pickens and still help our defense. It's not an either-or situation. Cowboys, at minimum, will franchise tag Pickens. Would it be nice if the Cowboys found a way to actually pay him before free agency and unlock even more salary cap space in dollars? Absolutely. Will I be disappointed if they again fail to do that? Also, absolutely, but I'd be pretty shocked unless something bad happens down the stretch here in which Pickens isn't back on the Cowboys in 2025. I don't think we have to freak out about that.
Let's also look at the other notable wide receiver in Dallas, that's CeeDee Lamb. The last 24 hours or so, there's been a lot of weird discussion, I'll call it, on Cowboys Twitter about CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and having to choose, and Clarence Hill kind of saying that, well, the Cowboys offense has struggled since Lamb returned, which is the definition of correlation versus causation. Let me be clear as it relates to the Cowboys offense and everything, short-term and long-term. You don't have to choose. This is not an either-or situation. And the offense, even though it has been a disappointment in the last 2 games, isn't actually our big picture issue. That's very clearly the defensive side of the ball that's causing issues right now. CeeDee Lamb's numbers are down a bit this year. The injuries are a factor. I don't think we have to pretend to forget how good he was back in 2023 and 2022 and how good overall he has been as a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. You need George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb together. That was the whole point of doing that trade. I don't understand how we spent months complaining about the lack of a legitimate wide receiver 2, more than months, frankly, to help out CeeDee Lamb, to help out Dak Prescott. Then we get not just a receiver 2, but a 1B, and we suddenly suddenly can't handle that and start going, well, you just have to like move on from one of them or dump them. Like, no, keep them together. Let those two have success. Don't get rid of good players unless you have to for some reason, which is obviously not the case right now. It doesn't make any sense to me because if we move on from one of those guys, then I'm complaining about how bad the other receivers are compared to Pickens or Lamb. Stop it. Keep these two together. We have the funds. We have the draft picks to do other stuff. Just make it happen. It's not that hard. Let's not complicate those things. Let's focus on the real issues. Red zone play calling, penalties, consistent run game, and of course, like almost everything on our defense. It's not that hard. So do you want to keep CeeDee and Pickens together in Dallas, 2 for together? Because it's 2 for 1. If you want to separate them, let me know in a comment section of today's show. Jaydon Blue was benched in the last game, I should say, not last week. I am curious to see if Jaydon Blue plays this week. I think the Cowboys could always call someone up from the practice squad that can bring back Malik Davis. Jaydon Blue got benched because of the fumble. We can call it what it was, setting the standard, whatever. He has not been as impactful as I think any of us would have liked to have seen. Part of that is the offensive line. He hasn't had that many carries. It's been a lot of just like straight up inside runs, garbage time snaps that aren't very valuable there. One thing I would like to see from Jaydon Blue is to be more involved in the passing game. He was very good in that role at Texas. Some drops and fumbling issues overall, that's a concern, but he's explosive with the ball in his hands. He's able to do some real route running stuff, and the Cowboys' receiving game in the backfield has been terrible all year long. 1 catch, 5 yards for Jaydon Blue, Javonte Williams, and look, they're not high leverage moments, but when was the last time a running back screen did anything for Dallas? If they're going to call a screen in the backfield, which I'm hoping they spent some bye week time trying to adjust that part of the game plan, maybe let Jaydon Blue do it. Otherwise, continuing to give Javonte Williams targets at like 2 to 3 every game, I just don't like that math. So will Jaydon Blue end up playing this week for the Dallas Cowboys? Let me know in the comments section of today's show.
Okay, now moving to the final topic of the day, the betting lines indicate Mike McCarthy is the favorite to be the New York Giants' next head coach. I won't be upset if the Giants end up hiring Mike McCarthy. That doesn't really scare me that much. If they do, they probably finally snap our losing streak, whatever. I don't think he was that great of a coach. I don't think he was terrible. It feels like the Giants would kind of be capping their ceiling. I think his offense was a bit outdated. Who's he going to hire as his DC? I think the Giants could do worse. They could certainly do a lot better as well. I think it's worth monitoring. I think you're going to see Mike McCarthy linked to a lot of jobs, and I think that's kind of going to be the placeholder until like the coaching searches get going and then the real favorites end up emerging. You can go back and look at previous years. Very rarely does that early favorite end up winning the job unless there's like a clear and obvious direct connection tie between the person in charge and the actual head coach. So I am not overly concerned about that one at all.